RCHUB International Foundation for Research and Education, and ISO certified.
So, greetings. Today in this session we are going to discuss in detail about the statistics and how to do the data analysis using SPSS, then tips to write research article and thesis. So now let me get started. Let me start with an introduction to statistics. So when it comes to statistics, the first and foremost what you have to know is that the statistics is all about collecting data, organizing it, analyzing it, interpreting, and then presenting the data what we analyzed. So when it comes to statistics, the next important thing that we need to take into consideration is the sample. The samples are nothing but the representative of the entire population from whom the data is being collected. So we need to make sure that the respondents or the data what we collect is from the right sample. Or in case if we haven't adopted a right sample, obviously we may end up in a biased research work. So, and coming to the statistics, there are only two different types of statistics. One is a descriptive statistics, another is inferential statistics, which can be subcategorized into prescriptive statistics and predictive statistics. So the entire statistics can be segregated only into two different types. So what this descriptive statistics is all about? The descriptive statistics is all about the measure of central tendency, dispersion, distribution, and so on. So this we measure using mean, that is average value, median, that is a middle value, mode is a most repeated value, and the skewness and kurtosis, which is a measure of peakness and which is a measure of flatness, and the standard deviation, how far the value is getting deviated from the middle value. So these we will see while we perform the data analysis using SPSS. And coming to inferential statistics, generally, as I stated before, the statistics is very simple. We perform statistics to hypothetically test for four reasons: whether there is a significant association between a variable, or is there significant relationship between the variable, or significant influence of one variable on another variable, or significant difference between the variables. So it is for these four purposes we do the entire statistics and hypothetical testing. So the statistics is simple. Statistics is generally classified into descriptive, which is mean, median, mode, skewness, standard deviation, and kurtosis, and whereas the inferential statistics is nothing but a hypothetical testing. We test hypothesis based on these four reasons. Either to find whether there is significant association between the variable, or significant relationship between the variable, or significant influence of one variable on the another variable, or significant difference between the variable. So when talking about the data types, with respect to SPSS, we have three different types of data types: scale, ordinal, and nominal. But in general, as far as statistics is concerned, we have only two different types of data. One is a categorical data and another is a metric data. I tell you what this categorical data is all about. The categorical data is nothing but groups. Say for example, what is your gender, male, female, what is your are you a smoker or a non-smoker, what do you prefer, tea or coffee. So these kind of data are called as categorical data. Whereas a metric data is any data that deals with a number or Likert scale based question. The Likert scale based question, it could be a 5-point or 7-point or more than that, but it cannot be a 3-point Likert scale. So the most important thing is the number. See, for example, if you ask a question, what is your age, dash, it could be of any number. It could be of any number. Say it could be 24, 28, 27. So it could be of any number. So this is a metric data. But in case if you are given like this, say for example, what is your age? Is it less than 25, or 25 to 35, or 36 to 45, or 46 to 55, or above 55? So now it becomes a categorical data. It falls under certain groups. So don't misunderstand that the categorized options of age or income is a metric data. It's a categorical data. Only if you ask dash, that is what is your age, dash, it could be of any number, then it is a metric data. So based on these combinations, that is categorical data and metric data, there are three different possible combinations. Either both the variable what we are considering for the statistical analysis could be categorical data. If both the data are categorical, then we need to perform significant association test. So in case if one data is categorical in nature and another data is metric, then we need to perform significance difference test. If both the data are metric, then we need to perform significant relationship test. If there is a significant relationship between the variables what we have considered, then we can opt for significant impact test. So you may have a question, what is a significant association? What statistical techniques do I need to apply for to find the significant association between the two variables or what? So if both the data are categorical in nature, then I already told you we need to perform significant association test. In order to do significant association test, you can apply two statistical techniques in SPSS. One is a chi-square test and another is a correspondence analysis. So say for example you went to a cancer institute and you are asking just two questions, that is, are you a smoker or a non-smoker, or you a cancer patient or a non-cancer patient. So the smoker, both are categorical data, and you found that most of the smokers are cancer patients, which means that there is some association between smoking and cancer, we can say, right? So you may also ask me, sir, we can also say there is significant relationship between smoking and cancer. Actually, we cannot say so. I tell you why. So when it comes to significant relationship test, both the data has to be metric. I told right, both the data has to be metric. Both the data should be number. So say for example, India's population is a number, India's GDP is a number. So when it comes to relationship test, it could be either positive or negative. Say for example, as the population increases, India GDP decreases. It is called as negative relationship. And whereas the industry growth index of the India increases, the GDP of India also increases, positive relationship. Whereas in association, we cannot say whether there is a positive association or negative association. We can say there is some association between smoking and cancer. We cannot say there is positive or negative association, but in relationship we can say there is a positive relationship between the two variable or negative relationship between the two variable or not. So this is the difference between the association test and relationship test. In association, both the data has to be categorical in nature. In significant relationship test, both the data has to be metric. So in case if there is a significant relationship between the two variables, then we can opt for regression analysis. Regression analysis is a powerful analyzing techniques through which you can also forecast the future, predict the future. We will be getting a regression equation. Generally, most of the researchers deal with only one type of regression analysis, that is a simple linear regression or a multiple linear regression. There are other regression also. Say for example, there is a power regression, sign reaction, cubic regression, quadratic regression, logistic regression, logarithmic regression, exponential regression. There are various forms of regression techniques. So whatever is giving us the highest R-square value, which is the forecasting accuracy, we need to consider that regression equation. So if we take regression analysis, say let us consider the same example. We know that the population increases, GDP decreases. So it has a negative relationship. So in order to predict how if we know the population, we can be able to predict the GDP. If we know the GDP, we may be able to predict the population. So that is the power of regression analysis. We may be able to predict one variable using the another variable. So coming to the significance difference test. If both the data or one data is categorical in nature, another data is metric, then we need to perform significance difference test. The significance difference test, there are different types of we need to employ t-test. There are different types of t-tests. Say for example, there is one sample t-test, independent sample t-test, ANOVA and paired sample t-test. If a standard value is given, at that point of time we need to use one sample t-test. Say for example, you are running a vehicle showroom. Say you are running a Royal Enfield vehicle showroom, and the company have claimed that a Royal Enfield Classic will 350cc will give a mileage of 30 km per liter in a city. So you have got nearly 10 vehicles for your service center, and you are measuring the mileage, and you found that it is giving only 28 km per liter in a city. So company have claimed 30, which is a standard value, and you have measured, the measured value with 10 samples is 28. So there is a significant difference in the mileage between the value given by the company and the tested mileage. So this is what is one sample t-test. A standard value will be given. Independent sample t-test is done when the categorical data has only two options. Say for example, if you have only male and female, the gender, or male and female, for this you can do independent sample t-test. In case if there is three options, say for example male, female, transgender, So then if there are 2 plus options, we need to perform ANOVA. So paired sample t-test are generally carried out in physical science studies to measure the impact of exercise. Before exercise, what was the stamina? After the exercise, what was the stamina? Here, this same sample is considered at 2 different time interval. If that is the circumstances in your study, you may be able to use the paired sample t-test. For example, impact of COVID on IT industry. So before and after you are going to take a study then you may be able to use the paired sample t-test. So in certain scenario, you need to use a non-parametric test. I tell you what, not this non-parametric test. Non-parametric tests are employed if your data are not normally distributed or if your data sample size is less than 30. If your sample size is more than 385, you no need to check the normality. You can just like that go for parametric analysis. In case if your data are less than 30, you should be doing only non-parametric test. Which means instead of independent sample t-test, you need to use Mann-Whitney test. Instead of paired sample t-test, we need to use Wilson-Signed-Rank test. Instead of ANOVA, we need to use Kruskal-Wallis test. And if your sample is somewhere in between 30 to 385, then we need to check the normality. We can check the normality using histogram method, using the SPSS itself, or Simplo method. There are tests to check whether the data are normally distributed. So using that, we may able to identify whether the data are normally distributed. You can, if your sample size is between 30 to 385, if your data are normally distributed, you can do parametric test. If it is not normally distributed, you need to perform non-parametric test. So now let us perform an analysis using data analysis using SPSS. So as we have discussed about the statistics, now let me illustrate how to perform statistics in the SPSS. So in order to perform a descriptive statistics, let me start with the simple percentage analysis. In order to do simple percentage analysis, what you have to do is that first you have to click analyze, click on descriptive statistics, click on frequencies, and then you need to select the variables, appropriate variables. Say for example, I wanted to do a simple percentage analysis for demographic profile. So I don't know which is a demographic question, so everything is in the form of name. So in order to make it as label, right click, select display by labels. Now I have everything clear. So gender, so first is the gender, age, education, current position, monthly expense, area of residence. These all are for these I want percentage analysis. So what you have to do is that just click OK. You will be getting a percentage table. So simple percentage analysis, you will be getting frequency and equivalent percentage. You don't need to consider this valid percentage and cumulative percentage. So for gender, out of 433 respondents, 328 are male and 105 are female, which means 75.8% are male, 24.2% are female. Similarly for age category and other things. So now you have understood how to perform a simple percentage analysis. In case if you want to do the descriptive statistics, what I stated before, mean, median, mode, skewness, standard deviation. To do that also, once again click the analyze tab and go to descriptive statistics, and then click the frequencies once again. Under the frequency, what you have to do is that you need to select the variables. I am going to select the first factor. The first factor, that is I1, the implementation of green banking. I1 I have named as I1. There are 12 questions, so I am going to select all the 12 questions. Then in the statistics, click on the statistic tab here, select the mean, median, mode, standard deviation, skewness and kurtosis. If you want, if you are dealing with stock market, you need to also tie a checkbox maximum, minimum, variance and range. So once everything is been checkbox, click OK. Now you will get the output. So mean, that is average opinion of the respondents. For the commercial banks in Hyderabad offers financial products specifically designed to support renewable energy. For this, the average value is 4.21, which means they agree, because here there are 5 options, 5-point Likert scale. 1 is strongly disagree, 2 is disagree, 3 is neither agree nor disagree, 4th is agree, and 5th is strongly agree. So it is somewhere between 4 that is 4 and 5, that is agree and strongly agree, that is 4.2. Median is middle value. Middle value in the sense it is 216, I think so. 216 is a middle value. That respondent have selected the fourth option, and most of the respondent have selected the fourth option. Standard deviation, how far the value is getting deviated from the center value, that is 4.2771. It is either increasing by 0.8 value or decreasing by 0.8 value. That is what is the standard deviation. Skewness is a measure of flatness, and kurtosis is a measure of peakness, generally used to find the volatility in the economic based data. And range is nothing but maximum minus minimum, which is minimum is from 1 and maximum here the Likert scale is 5, so we get 5 minus 1 is 4. That is what it is. So descriptive statistics is a measure of central tendency and the dispersion. So just like that. So now we have understood how to perform a descriptive statistics and how to perform the percentage analysis. Now let us perform now let us perform the chi-square analysis, that is significant association. I told you, right, to perform significant association, both the data has to be categorical in nature. So let me see what data I can consider for this study. So is there any categorical? Obviously demographic profile is a categorical data. Is there any other categorical data? Yes, there is an 5 categorical data. Let me consider the first one. What do you believe that the commercial banks in Hyderabad should collaborate more closely with the government agency to develop and implement green banking policies and incentives? So this is the question. Yes, one is the question. So let me see. Let me do the analysis for this one. So to do that, once again click on the Analyze tab, go to Descriptive Statistics, click on the Cross tab. So so what I'm going to do is, it's already been selected. So first what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select the gender in the column. You can also do vice versa, no problem. You will be getting the same output. So believe in the another column, and then in the statistics you need to check box the chi-square analysis. You need to make sure the chi-square analysis is check boxed and phi and Kramer value is check boxed. So then if you want bar chart, you can check box this one, or else you can leave it blank. So I want bar chart, so I'm going to check box this one, and then I'm going to click OK. So now I have got the output. So we see majority of the respondents have said yes. They believe that the commercial bank in Hyderabad should collaborate more closely with the government agency to develop and implement green banking policies and incentives. So 347 have among the 105 females, nearly 81 said yes, they need to adopt. Similarly, among the 328 males, 266 majority have accepted they should adopt, which means obviously there will be no association irrespective of the gender. Both say it should be there. Therefore there should be no association between the gender and the opinion for green banking. So let us see the significance value. Yeah, you see the significance value is 0.486, which is greater than 0.05. If any value is greater than 0.05, then the null hypothesis is accepted. So here, what is null hypothesis? There is no significant association. Similarly, there is no significant relationship, there is no significant difference, there is no significant impact. So here, if you take a close look, there is no significant association with gender and the belief on the commercial banks in Hyderabad to adopt green banking policies and incentive, because irrespective of male or female, both are telling same the thing. So here there is no significant association. So this is how we have to interpret. So we need to look at the significance value. If it is greater than 0.05, accept the null hypothesis. Less than 0.05, then the null hypothesis is rejected. So this is how we need to perform the chi-square statistics. Now let us go to significance difference test. Significance difference test, that is, let me start with the independent sample t-test, which is a tough one to interpret. So in order to perform independent sample t-test, click on compare, and compare means go to independent sample t-test. Select the variables. I have already selected the first factor, that is the 12 variable factor, and I wanted to select the first demographic profile, which is gender, which is Gender has only two options, right? I told you, right? For to perform independent sample t-test, only two options are allowed. Even if there is three options, say for in age category there is four options, still we can do independent sample t-test for only two options within it. So group 1 is male, 2 is female. I have entered the option and then I'm going to click OK. Now I got the output. So in independent sample t-test we have three significance value. That's why it is hard to interpret. So I told you, right, when the value, the significance value is greater than 0.05, accept it. If it is less, reject it. So here it's 0.06, it's greater than 0.05, which means the significance value straight to it, that is 0.037 is the actual significance value. If this value, say for example, fourth case, it is less than 0.05, that is 0.04, which means we need to reject this significance value 0.338 and we need to accept this significance value, that is 0.389. So this is how we need to accept and reject the null hypothesis. So now you have understood how to perform the independent sample t-test, that is click analyze tab, go to compare mean, select the independent sample t-test. Similarly, to perform ANOVA test, click on one-way ANOVA. And let me consider age as my demographic profile question, which is having more than 2+ options. So I'm going to select the same factor, that is the I factors, the I1 to 12 I have selected, and then I'm going to click OK. So if you take a close look, now I got the output. For ANOVA you will be having only one significance value, that is 0.015, which means there is significant difference in opinion with respect to different age category. Since the value is less than 0.05, the null hypothesis, that is there is no significant difference, is rejected. Which means we need to accept the alternative hypothesis, that is there is significant difference in opinion among the respondents with respect to different age category for this particular question, that is commercial banks in Hyderabad offers financial products specifically designed to support renewable energy project. But if you take the third case, it is not so. Irrespective of the age category, everyone accepts this one, that is commercial banks in Hyderabad integrate environmental, social and governance criteria into the lending and investment decision. Everyone accepts this. So this is how the null hypothesis acceptance and rejections are made. So now we have understood how to perform the chi-square test, the independent sample t-test and ANOVA. Now let me teach you how to perform the correlation analysis. For correlation analysis, you see I have already considered the data, that is I have averaged the entire value. So the implementation of green banking has 12 questions. You see, the implementation of green banking has 12 questions. So I have summarized everything and I averaged the value and have converted into one single value, that is I, that is extent of implementation. Similarly, drivers behind adopting green banking, it has nearly 16 questions. You see, D1 to D16 questions. I have averaged all these values into one single value, that is drivers behind the adoption of green banking. Similarly, environmental sustainability, challenges and role of stakeholders, everything I have converted into a single value. For this, you see, I have converted into single value. For this, we can use data transform, or we can simply use an Excel sheet and calculate and we can paste it. Using data transform would be better. So that in case I will teach you, in case if I have an option to teach you the data analysis using SPSS separately, because teaching everything in one session is not possible, especially in 1 hour. So please don't mistake me. So I have already converted the data. I told you, right, to know this, to identify the significant relationship between the two variables, what you have to do is that you need to do a correlation analysis. To do a correlation analysis, click analyze tab, go to correlate, select bivariate, select the variables. I have already selected the variables, that is ID, you see ID, IM, C, R, everything, and I am going to click OK. So now I have got the output. here the most important thing is that first you need to look at the significance value. If the significance value is less than 0.05, then your null hypothesis is rejected. Well, then what is the alternative hypothesis? There is significant relationship between the two variables. That is, the extent of implementation and drivers behind the adoption of green banking has significant relationship of 88%. 0.88 represent 88% relationship. Similarly, environmental sustainability and socio-economic development has 85.9% relationship with the extent of implementation. Similarly, you have to interpret the entire thing. Since we have relationship of all variables against everything we have considered, now let me consider one dependent variable and other independent variables. Let me consider this environmental sustainability and socio-economic development as my dependent variable, and all others are independent variable. I wanted to know how for challenges in adopting green banking, role of stakeholders in green banking, drivers behind the adoption of green banking, extent of implementation affects or impact the environmental sustainability and socio-economic development. So in order to do that, click on analyze, click on regression, click on linear regression, select the variables. That is, I have already selected environmental sustainability dependent variable, other things as my independent variable, that is ID, CRS independent variables. Now I'm going to click OK. So now I got the output. In the output, we have to look at, for regression, we have to look at three important criteria. Whether the R square value is greater than 0.6, we have it is greater than 0.8, which means our regression equation forecasting accuracy is 81.3%. Similarly, the significance value, ANOVA significance value is should be less than 0.05. We are getting only 0.00, which means our model is fit, the second criteria. The third criteria is we need to look at the coefficient significance value, which should be less than 0.05. If any one of them is not less than 0.05, which means that particular variable does not impact the environmental sustainability or socio-economic development. For us, everything impacts the socio-economic sustainability. So we can say that the regression equation here is y equal to a plus bx. Y is nothing but environmental sustainability and socio-economic development, the dependent variable, and equal to a is nothing but the constant, that is 0.167, plus bx. B is nothing but the extent of implementation into 0.282 plus drivers behind the adoption into 0.185 plus 0.238 into challenges and plus 0.257 into role of stakeholders. This is multiple linear regression analysis. If you are going to compare only one variable against another variable, say for example only environmental sustainability and socio-economic development against the role of stakeholders, one variable against another variable, then it is called as simple linear regression. So as simple as this. So I have taught you the influence test or impact test, that is regression analysis. Then we have also understood how to interpret the correlation analysis and how to perform correlation analysis, that is significant relationship test. Then for significance difference test, we have performed ANOVA test, we have performed independent sample t test. In order to do MANOVA, that is multivariate analysis, so we can do by general linear model, click on multivariate, and this is MANOVA, which is multiple ANOVA at a time. We can do, instead of doing factor by factor, you can consider all the factor at once, and all the dependent variable at once, and then you can perform the analysis. Click on the model, custom model, select the particular variables, select main effect, and then continue. We will be getting all output, with respect to, instead of doing one by one demographic profile, you can do all at once. So that's the power of multivariate test. So I have taught you the significance difference test, MANOVA also. Then I have taught about how to perform the chi-square analysis using SPSS, which is a significant association test. And I also taught you how to perform the frequency analysis. So frequency, we have done everything. So you may have a question, sir, how to easily identify from the questionnaire what analysis to be performed. To do that, generally statisticians do this work. You see this work. My objective 2 was related to green HRM practices. My objective 3 was related to employee performance and environmental performance. So what I do is that my independent variables are nothing but my demographic variable. Obviously, it is independent variable, and I will look at whether they are categorical data or metric data. All my demographic profiles are categorical data, and the number of options it has I will put, that is age has more than 2 plus options. It has 4 options, so I put 2 plus. Gender has only 2 options, that is male and female, so I put only 2. So education qualification, once again 2 plus. And for green HRM practices I used 5-point Likert scale. I told you, right, if it 5-point Likert scale or any Likert scale, it should be considered as a metric data, and it has 5 point. Since it is 5 point, it is 2 plus options, so I can either do for all together, age, gender, education, everything together, I can do either multivariate test, or if I want to do one by one, I can do ANOVA. Since age has 2 plus options, and this is to metric data, categorical data and metric data, we need to do significant difference test. So if it has 2 plus options, ANOVA. It has only 2 options. If the categorical data has only 2 options, then we need to perform independent sample t-test. So this is how I will make sure that what kind of statistical techniques need to be employed. Some people, what they do is that with the demographic profile, they perform with the green HRM practices, they perform regression analysis. We will get the output, but it is statistically wrong. We cannot perform any correlation or regression analysis using a demographic profile, which is a categorical data. That is statistically wrong. If you take close look here, my fourth objective was to identify the relationship between the green HRM practices and employee and environmental performance. So this is a metric data. Once again, this is also a metric data. So I have performed correlation analysis. So if there is a good amount of correlation, that is relationship between the variable, we can go for regression analysis. That is what we have did. And if both the data are categorical in nature, we saw right, the type of the gender, which is what we did, and suggest analysis, which is once again a categorical data. If both the data are categorical nature, we can perform the chi-square analysis. So first and foremost thing is that you need to create a table like this one, and then finalize what analysis to be performed, and you need to stick on to it, because you may perform any statistical technique, you will be getting the output in SPSS, but it will be statistically wrong. If one is categorical data and another is metric data, you should be performing only significance difference test, either by using ANOVA or independent, or altogether as multivariate. If both data are metric, you have to only opt for correlation analysis, and if there is a correlation, you can go for regression analysis. And if there is if both the data are categorical, then you can go for only the chi-square test or the correspondence analysis. So this is how the statistician decide what kind of statistics to be applied rightly for their data collected using the questionnaire. So coming to the point, coming to the next topic, that is the tips for writing the research article. To me, first and foremost, there are 13 steps, and the very first step is that identify the research gap, and the research gap is the novelty of your article. So you relate that, put that research gap into your title of the article. That title itself should be in a position to illustrate that it's a novel article, novel research article in that domain. And conduct a thorough review of literature. Don't consider review of literature more than a decade old. And with the research gap which you have already formulated and the reviews what you have collected, try to clearly frame the research question and objective, and design a robust methodology. Don't adopt the same research methodology what you are adopting for your thesis as a PhD researcher. So try to adopt some different methodology that is completely novel. Even you can employ a novelty even in the research methodology. So write a comprehensive introduction. It should not be very generic. It should not be something like what everyone is able to rationally decide and think about on the topic. It should have some insightness. That is how the introduction has to be, and present more detailed and clear review of literature with identified research gaps and the key variables. And then research design. Once everything is being finalized, illustrate and justify your research design, the data collection instrument you have used, data analysis, why you have used, what for you have used, and present the data set, and finally conclude with the key findings. Don't exaggerate, don't give a generic finding. try to present a key findings and also provide a futuristic research scope, and if there is a possibility of any limitation what you're seeing in a study, include that in a futuristic research implications, and ensure that it has read the entire article. Read the entire article. First you have to read the entire article to check whether there is continuity, clarity and coherence. And once if you see if there is a continuity, clarity and coherence, then proofread. Don't just proofread once or twice, proofread and also make your peer reviewer to proofread once again, so that you may able to come up with a good research article. And finally, before you send the article, see to it, every journal has their own formatting lines and reference styles. You adhere to it and check the plagiarism finally, and then send it. So this is the best way to send the research article to get selected in a reputed journal. And when it comes to tips for writing the thesis, the introduction should be as a comprehensive introductory content, and the statement of problem should be completely relevant to the research gap what you have identified. And using the research gap should be incorporated, and the statement of problems should be incorporated in the objectives. And based on the objectives only, you have to write the significance and the scope of the study. And when it comes to review of literature, try to segregate apart from introduction in the beginning and research gap at the final place. Try to segregate your review of literature into 3 or 4 sections based on your study, and this will give you a better clarity and the factor that you need to employ for your questionnaire. And then is the research methodology. Try to provide justification for your research design, sample design, that is why you have selected this particular sample respondent, why you have employed this particular sampling technique, and why this sample size. You need to give a proper justification for the sample size and the study area, why you have chosen this, what kind of data collection instrument you have adopted, the questionnaire, the pilot study output, that is cron batch alpha value has to be illustrated. Chapter 4 should deal with analysis and interpretation, and the chapter 5 should not end up with findings, suggestion, conclusion, but also further scope for research has to be illustrated. So this is how you have to go with the writing of thesis. So I hope I have illustrated everything. I have illustrated the introduction to the statistics, and then we talk about 2 different types of statistics, descriptive and inferential, and then the 4 different things what for we do statistics. We do statistics for only 4 reasons: either to know the significant association, which is done by the chi-square test and correspondence analysis, and then we do, if both the data are metric in nature, then we do significant relationship test using correlation analysis, and then if there is relationship, we will go for regression analysis, and then if the one data is categorical and another data is metric, we will go for t-test. There are different types of t-test. We also discussed about parametric and non-parametric, and then we also discussed how to perform these analysis using SPSS. Finally, we have discussed about tips for writing research article, and finally the tips for writing the thesis. So with this, I hope I have taught you everything in 3 sessions in a very brief manner. I might be in future period of time, if we have time, if I could be able to have a session for more than 10 days, then we may able to plan to discuss everything elaborately. Thank you all. Thank you God. Take care. We see. Bye.
Contact RCHUB International Foundation for Research and Education. WhatsApp 9888 231 231.